She-Hulk bite would have killed any human, but not the THANOS ***. The sky above Cronus Prime, blood-green lightning. Buildings, once proud and golden, now lay shattered like the bones of ancient gods. The air buzzed with leftover energy from torn timelines, glitches of moments that should have never touched. A child laughing, then vanishing. A tree growing in reverse. The multiversal fracture had cracked the edges of reality itself. Through the ruins strode She-Hulk, taller than most men, her powerful frame wrapped in scorched armor. But this wasn't the She-Hulk the world once knew. After the Gamma Surge Wars, Jennifer Walters had become something more. Something feared. She was now called Verdant Fury, a living fusion of rage and law, strength and sorrow. Her breath fogged in the strange chill of the broken city as she scanned for survivors with glowing green eyes. But what she found was not a survivor. It was him. THANOS. He stood calmly in the heart of the cratered avenue, his armor dulled, his blade planted in the earth like a gravestone. The wind carried ash and silence. His eyes, cold suns beneath his heavy brow, watched her approach, not with fury, not with madness, with interest. "You're not supposed to exist," She-Hulk growled, muscles tensing. Her voice was deeper now, touched by Gamma, echoing through the broken metal and stone. "Neither are you," THANOS replied, his voice low, ancient, and heavy as a collapsing star. "And yet, here we are." She didn't wait for more words. With a roar that shook the broken glass from steel bones above, She-Hulk launched forward. The ground cracked beneath her. THANOS met her charge like a wall of shadow. Their collision thundered across the ruins, sending shockwaves through the skeletal remains of Cronus Prime. Fists met fists, blade met strength. Rubble flew like paper. They fought like gods fallen from grace, two living storms clashing under a sick sky. Her blood pounded with fury and fear. She didn't know what magic or science had brought him back, but she knew the universe couldn't survive him again. With a leap, she tackled him through a concrete wall, then bit down, hard, into his shoulder. A bite meant to end any mortal. A bite infused with pure gamma rage. He staggered. His skin cracked, but didn't break. Instead, the energy pulsed through him, welcomed him. His veins lit up with a faint green glow. She-Hulk stepped back, eyes wide. "That should have killed you." "It would have," he admitted, rolling his massive shoulder. "If I were still only what I once was." The moment hung between them, broken only by the whine of a distant time rift collapsing. They stared at each other, panting, bruised, uncertain. And then something shifted. Not in the sky, not in the ground. In the way he looked at her, not like an enemy, not like prey, like a mirror. Something raw passed between them, something dangerous. She clenched her jaw, rage and confusion tearing inside her like twin wolves. "I don't care what you've become," she hissed. "You're still the monster who tried to erase half of everything." He nodded once, "Then let us fight again. But know this, there are worse monsters now, and they're coming." Before she could answer, the world cracked open behind him, revealing a glimpse of another timeline bleeding through. Screams echoed from the void. And for the first time, She-Hulk hesitated. Not because she feared him, but because for the first time in her life, she wasn't sure she should. She-Hulk bite would have killed any human, but not the THANOS ***. She-Hulk stood in the center of the wreckage, the ground beneath her feet still smoldering from the shockwaves of their fight. Her breath came in heavy, uneven gasps. The green glow in her eyes flickered, struggling to settle into something more controlled. But the air felt charged, different now, as though the very atmosphere knew something had changed. THANOS watched her carefully, his figure towering like a dark sentinel against the chaos of Cronus Prime. He hadn't even broken a sweat. The green stain of gamma energy still pulsed faintly beneath his skin, an unusual kind of power that was neither alien nor human, neither destroyer nor savior. She could feel it. and she didn't like it. "You should have been dead." She finally spoke, her voice hoarse, but edged with the rawness of disbelief. "No human could survive that." Thanos let out a soft, mirthless chuckle. "I'm no longer human." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. The battlefield had fallen quiet. Even the shattered remains of the city seemed to hold its breath. And for a moment, neither of them moved. Neither of them spoke. In the silence, She-Hulk felt the weight of the universe itself pressing down on her, her heart hammering in her chest, her mind racing with 1,000 questions. But the most dangerous one she didn't dare voice, kept curling up from the depths of her mind. What if he wasn't the monster she thought he was? Her fist clenched involuntarily, the urge to fight, to crush, to end the threat once and for all surging through her again. But something stopped her. The image of his eyes, cold but not without purpose. They were not the eyes of a mad tyrant, but of a being who had lost everything, and maybe, just maybe, was trying to find his place in the ruins of the universe. "No one's ever truly gone," he said, his voice soft now, almost contemplative. "Not really. Especially not beings like us." She felt an unexpected pang of sorrow rip through her chest, though she fought to keep it buried. There was no time for weakness. He was still Thanos. He was still the butcher who had tried to erase half of existence. But how could she ignore the quiet desperation in his voice? The way his hands trembled just slightly, like he was on the edge of something even darker than his former self. "What do you want from me?" She-Hulk growled, stepping back, raising her fists, her muscles rippling under the green sheen of her skin. Thanos didn't flinch. He didn't even move. His gaze remained steady, as if waiting for her to understand something that she was only just beginning to glimpse. "I need your help," he said. The words hit her like a blow to the stomach. She almost laughed, but the laughter died in her throat. The audacity, the insanity. "No, I will never help you," she snapped. Her tone was final. "Do you think I wanted this?" he continued, his eyes flashing with an intensity that nearly matched her own rage. "Do you think I asked for the power that tore me apart? That infected me? You think I enjoyed watching everything burn? You think I—" He stopped suddenly, as if he realized how close he was to losing control, and then his voice dropped to a whisper, jagged with pain. "I can't stop it, Jen. I'm becoming something worse, something that even I can't control." She didn't know what to say. The fire in her chest began to fade, replaced by something heavier, something colder, sinking into the pit of her stomach. Her own anger was still there, swirling in dark corners of her mind. But now, there was something else, an undeniable thread of sympathy, tangled in with the rage. The pause stretched long, but neither of them moved. "You're lying," she whispered, her voice unsteady now. "You're always lying. You." "I'm not." Thanos cut her off, his gaze now unyielding, his voice growing firmer. "You bit me. Do you know what that means? The gamma energy. It's changing me. It's twisting me into something even worse than I was. You're the only one who can help me stabilize it, or it will consume me completely." Her heart beat in her chest like a drum. She wanted to scream, to crush him with everything she had, to remind him of every atrocity he'd ever committed. But another part of her, one she refused to acknowledge, wanted to listen, to understand. "You're asking me to save you," she said, the words tasting like ash on her tongue. "Yes," he replied, his voice quiet but steady, like the calm before a storm. "And in doing so, you might save us all." She stared at him, green eyes locked onto his. Somewhere in that look, something shifted, something unspoken yet clear. They were both monsters in their own way, both survivors of destruction. And for the first time in her life, She-Hulk found herself questioning the line between hero and villain. For the first time, she wasn't sure if she wanted to be either. She-Hulk bite would have killed any human, but not the Thanos ***. The stars above Cronus Prime flickered in and out of existence, as if the universe itself was uncertain whether it should remain whole. The world beneath their feet was a dying thing, a place of half-shattered timelines and fractured memories. It was here, amid the wreckage of the old world, that She-Hulk and Thanos found a moment of stillness. They had retreated from the battlefield, away from the chaos, the blood, the ruins of their fight. They stood now in the shadow of what had once been a grand space station, its silver hull long dented by battle. The cold emptiness of space echoed around them, filling the air with an unsettling silence. She-Hulk looked up at the station, the faint hum of the broken engines still alive, though barely. She could feel the weight of the silence pressing in on her, the weight of 1,000 unsaid things hanging between her and the being who had once tried to destroy everything she loved. But now he was a being she couldn't quite understand. Thanos stepped forward, his movements slow, measured, his armor gleaming faintly in the dim light. He was different now, far from the terrifying Titan she had once known. The gamma energy she had infected him with had altered him, twisted him into something new, something far more dangerous. And yet, she couldn't ignore the shift in him, the way his gaze lingered on her, softer than it had ever been before. "You should rest," he said, his voice low, almost comforting. "The war is not over, but this moment is." She looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time since their fight. Thanos was not the monster she remembered. There was a weariness in his eyes, a quiet pain that spoke of too many lifetimes lived, too many battles fought, and too much lost in the pursuit of power. It was a vulnerability she had never expected from him. "I don't need rest," she replied, her voice rough but steady. "I need to know why you came back. Why now?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned away, gazing out at the black expanse of space, the stars scattered like shards of broken glass. "There's no real reason," he finally said, his tone resigned. "Not for me. For the universe, maybe, but not for me." She frowned, feeling the weight of his words press on her chest like a stone. "I don't get it. You're not the same as before. You can't be. You can't just expect me to trust you." "I'm not asking for your trust," Thanos said quietly, his back still turned to her. "I never did." Her pulse quickened. His words, the cold truth of them, struck her with unexpected force. She wanted to hate him. She wanted to be furious, to unleash all her rage and end him right here, right now. But the anger she carried for so long, since that fateful snap, was suddenly a dull throb, buried beneath the weight of something else, something she couldn't name. "Then what do you want from me?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. The vulnerability in her tone surprised her, but she didn't try to hide it. She couldn't. He turned to face her then, and for a brief moment, the distance between them seemed to vanish. Thanos' eyes, once cold and unyielding, softened, and there was something in them, something that almost felt like regret. "I need you to stop what's coming," he said. "I'm not the only one infected with this energy, and it's spreading. There are forces out there, ancient ones, who will use it to consume everything." She blinked, trying to process his words. "You want me to fight your battles for you, to save the universe from something that's your fault." His jaw clenched, and for the briefest moment, she saw the flicker of his old, monstrous self, the tyrant who had destroyed worlds. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by a quiet resignation. "I didn't ask for this power," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "and now it's killing me." She felt a twist of something in her chest, a mixture of sympathy and suspicion. The irony of it all was too much to ignore. Thanos, the mad titan, pleading for her help. "I should hate you," She-Hulk muttered, almost to herself. "I should want to destroy you more than anything." But she trailed off, unsure of what she was about to say. The silence stretched between them, thick and uncomfortable. "But what?" Thanos prompted, his voice gentle, almost coaxing. But before she could answer, A rumble shook the station beneath their feet. The air grew heavy, vibrating with an energy that wasn't natural. She could feel it, the shift in the atmosphere. The storm was coming. Thanos' expression darkened, and he reached out, his hand grabbing her arm before she could react. "We don't have time for this," he said urgently. "If we don't act now, everything will be lost. The energy will consume us all." And with that, they turned toward the darkening horizon, knowing that whatever was coming would change everything. For better or for worse, She-Hulk bite would have killed any human, but not the Thanos ***. The ruins of Cronus Prime lay behind them as She-Hulk and Thanos hurtled through the cosmos, their destination unknown, yet urgent. The dark void of space seemed to press in from all sides, an endless nothingness punctuated only by the stars, flickering like the last breath of a dying world. She-Hulk's breath came in shallow bursts as she gripped the controls of the vessel, her mind racing. Beside her, Thanos sat like a looming shadow, his eyes fixed on the display before them. His presence was like a storm contained in human form, calm on the outside, but inside, a hurricane was building, raw and uncontrollable. The gamma energy inside him was a constant pulse, gnawing at his insides, twisting him slowly into something worse. She could see it, feel it in every movement, every glance. It had only been hours since they left the station, but already the signs of his struggle were undeniable. His hands trembled, a subtle but consistent shake, as if the very power coursing through him was fighting to break free. And for a brief moment, She-Hulk could have sworn that she saw something flicker in his eyes, a hint of fear. Fear from Thanos. The thought unsettled her. She didn't know what to make of it, but she couldn't ignore the nagging sense that the danger they were racing toward was more than she had anticipated. The starship plunged through the fabric of time itself, passing through shifting wormholes, crashing into the edges of timelines. The unstable warp drive carried them further into the unknown, deeper into a place where reality bent and twisted like a broken mirror. Then the ship jolted to a sudden halt, the hum of the engines dying as they dropped out of the warp. She-Hulk's heart pounded in her chest as she glanced at Thanos, who had tensed at the shift in their environment. "We're here," he said, his voice grim. The confidence he usually exuded had faded, replaced by something far more vulnerable. The Nexus Heart, the anchor of the multiverse, loomed before them, a vast, swirling nexus of energy, a swirling whirlpool that connected all worlds, all timelines. It was a place of unimaginable power, a place that could stabilize or destroy entire realities. And they had come to it with one purpose: to stabilize Thanos. But as She-Hulk set the ship down, a ripple of unease passed through her. The station they had arrived at was eerily silent, too quiet. No security systems, no alarms. It was as though the place had been abandoned for centuries, left to decay in the center of the universe's most sacred space. "I don't like this," She-Hulk muttered under her breath, her senses prickling. She glanced at Thanos, but his face had gone pale, his expression tightening in that way he did when something truly dangerous was about to unfold. "I didn't come here alone," he said, his voice tight with restraint. "They'd been waiting for us." Before she could ask him what he meant, the door to the ship hissed open, revealing a shadowy figure standing in the doorway. She-Hulk's instincts kicked in, her body going into a defensive stance, her eyes glowing a bright green. The figure stepped forward into the dim light. It was Nebula, but she wasn't alone. A third presence, smaller and more dangerous, stood beside her, Kang the Survivor. His eyes gleamed with a cold, calculating light as he looked between them. A smug smile curled at the corners of his lips. "Did you really think you could come here and fix this?" Nebula's voice was harassed, hardened by years of betrayal and rage. "You've made a grave mistake, Thanos. You should have stayed dead." "Where's the Nexus Keeper?" Thanos growled, his voice low and dangerous. "This is not your place, Nebula. You've gone too far." Kang chuckled darkly, stepping forward to stand beside Nebula. The Nexus Keeper. He's not coming. Not anymore. He never was. She-Hulk's gut twisted in sudden realization. They had been led into a trap. This wasn't a simple mission to stabilize THANOS. This was a betrayal, a carefully orchestrated attack. The Nexus Heart was nothing more than a prison, and they had just walked right into it. Why? She-Hulk demanded, stepping forward, her fists crackling with energy. Why betray him now, after all this time? What do you want? Kang's smile widened. What we want is simple. Control. The Nexus Heart is the key to everything. The power to rewrite the multiverse. And now, you've handed it to us, whether you like it or not. A bolt of energy erupted from Nebula's weapon, catching She-Hulk off guard. She barely managed to block it in time, but the force sent her crashing into the wall of the station. Pain lanced through her as her body collided with the cold metal, but she quickly pushed it aside, pushing herself to her feet. THANOS moved before she could react, stepping between her and their attackers. She-Hulk bite would have killed any human, but not the THANOS ***. The dark energy from the Nexus Heart surged like a tidal wave, its tendrils reaching out, filling the chamber with an unnatural chill. The walls of the station trembled, groaning under the strain of a power too great for them to contain. The station was dying, its core collapsing under the weight of its own instability. But in that chaos, there was no time to dwell. The battle had begun. She-Hulk gritted her teeth, shaking off the lingering effects of Nebula's attack. She could feel the dark pulse of the Nexus Heart, its malevolent energy making the air thick, oppressive. She could barely think straight, the sheer force of the station's descent into chaos threatening to overwhelm her senses. Get up, she growled to herself. She couldn't afford to falter. Not now. Not when they were so close to losing everything. THANOS stood in front of her, his fists glowing with the raw, unstable power of the gamma energy. His eyes were locked on Kang and Nebula, his expression twisted into something akin to a predator's hunger. But there was something else in the air now. A shift, an understanding that this battle was unlike any they had faced before. The Nexus Heart wasn't just a power source. It was a weapon, a reality-bending force that could tear apart timelines and reshape the very fabric of existence. And they had walked right into it. You think you can control this? Thanos' voice was a low, guttural growl, vibrating with the threat of power. You think this is your victory? Kang, his eyes cold and calculating, stepped forward, his hand raised as if commanding the very space around them. Victory? No, this is just the beginning. The Nexus is the ultimate prize, THANOS. It will give me the power to reshape everything. Time, worlds, fate itself. And you've already given me the keys. Nebula's laugh cut through the tension like a blade. You think you can stop us, Father? You're nothing but a ghost. Just a shadow of the terror you once were. Even the power inside you won't save you now. She-Hulk clenched her fists, the gamma energy inside her thrumming with fury. Her body was primed for battle, every muscle coiled like a spring ready to snap. But there was more at stake now than just defeating these two. The Nexus Heart was the true enemy. Its power could undo everything they fought for. Without warning, THANOS lashed out. The energy around him erupted in a violent storm, cracking the air with an explosion of force. Nebula dove to the side, but Kang remained still, his expression unchanged, as if he were waiting for the chaos to come to him. Thanos' blow landed on Kang's shield with a deafening crack, the impact sending a shockwave through the station. She-Hulk surged forward, her fists raised, aiming for Nebula. But as she moved, the floor beneath her feet began to shift, the gravity warping and pulling her in different directions. The Nexus Heart was fighting them now, its power lashing out, trying to tear them apart before they could do any more damage. Stay focused, Thanos barked, his voice cutting through the tumult. The heart is more dangerous than they are. We need to stabilize it before it's too late. But She-Hulk was already on the move, leaping toward Nebula. She saw the flicker of hesitation in her stepdaughter's eyes, the brief moment where she wasn't sure if she should fight or retreat. It didn't matter. The fight was personal now. Nebula was more than just a threat. She was family, a broken part of Thanos' past. And She-Hulk wouldn't let that betrayal go unpunished. They collided, and the impact sent a shockwave through the chamber. She-Hulk's fist slammed into Nebula's face with a force that cracked the air, but Nebula responded with a vicious kick to her side, sending She-Hulk crashing into the wall. Pain shot through her body, but She-Hulk pushed it aside, rising to her feet. She couldn't afford to be weak. Not now. Not when everything was hanging by a thread. Meanwhile, Thanos fought with an intensity She-Hulk had never seen from him before. His movements were a blur of power and precision, each strike aimed at destabilizing the energy around them. The Nexus heart pulsed violently in response, the walls of the station trembling as if the very universe was shaking. But the strain was too much. In an instant, the station's core began to collapse, a surge of energy lighting up the space around them. The very air seemed to tear, opening a rift between realities. The multiverse itself was unraveling at the edges, and they were caught in its pull. "We have to stop it." She-Hulk screamed over the roar of destruction, but Thanos' face was grim. He had already realized the truth. "The only way to stop it is to destroy the heart," he said, his voice filled with a cold finality. The real fight had just begun. She-Hulk bite would have killed any human, but not the Thanos ***. The rift in the air was like a wound torn open in the fabric of reality itself. From it, the Nexus Keeper emerged, its form shifting, an ethereal being made of pure light and energy. It was not a creature of flesh or bone, but something beyond comprehension, a being that existed between the very atoms of existence. Its eyes, if they could be called eyes, burned with the intensity of collapsing stars, gazing at She-Hulk and Thanos with an unsettling awareness. The silence that followed its arrival was suffocating, a heavy stillness that weighed down on the already crumbling station. She-Hulk felt the pressure of the station's instability, the ground beneath her feet trembling with each passing second. She could hear the roar of the multiverse itself, whispers of other realities, distant echoes from worlds that had already fallen, all collapsing into the chaotic heart of this place. Thanos was still, his dark eyes narrowed as he assessed the entity before them. His fists twitched, ready to strike, but something in the way the Nexus Keeper moved stopped him. There was no malice in its presence, no anger, only the cold inevitability of fate itself. "This is it," She-Hulk said, her voice low but filled with resolve. "The one thing that could undo everything." She took a step forward, her body still crackling with the remnants of the gamma energy. Her muscles ached, the strain of the ongoing battle pressing on her like a weight too heavy to bear. But there was no turning back. Not now. "You're right," Thanos replied, his voice steady, but tinged with a faint edge of weariness. "This is the moment of truth. If we don't stop the Nexus Keeper, there will be no saving this universe, or any other." The Nexus Keeper tilted its head slightly, its form flickering as though it were trying to understand their words. Then, its voice, deep, resonant, and yet somehow filled with sorrow, echoed through the chamber. "You cannot save what has already been undone. The timelines are broken. The multiverse is fracturing. There is no salvation, no reset." Its voice seemed to reverberate in the very bones of the station, as if it spoke directly to their souls. "The end is inevitable." She-Hulk's heart pounded in her chest, the weight of those words hanging in the air. But she wouldn't accept defeat. "Not yet. I don't care about your fate," she spat, her fists clenched at her sides. "I'll fight until there's nothing left. If it means saving everything I love, then I'll tear this whole place apart." Thanos moved beside her, his presence like a dark shadow in the glow of the Nexus Keeper's light. "The heart must be destroyed," he said quietly, his voice holding a finality that surprised even She-Hulk. "Only then will the multiverse stop bleeding. Only then can we end this. The Nexus Keeper's form flickered again, a burst of energy rippling outward as if it were reaching out to touch them. The station groaned under the strain of the destabilizing force, the walls cracking, the energy fluctuating wildly. "You cannot destroy what you do not understand," the Keeper said, its voice soft yet overwhelming. "You are not the first to try. The heart has always existed, before you, before your worlds, before all things. It is a constant, a force beyond the limitations of your time and space." She-Hulk gritted her teeth, her mind racing. "Then why don't you just let us do it? Why don't you let us end this?" The Keeper's gaze softened for a fraction of a moment. "Because you, too, are part of the fracture. You are a consequence of the Nexus's instability. If I allow you to destroy it, you will not be the saviors you believe yourselves to be. You will become the destroyers of all things." A shiver ran down She-Hulk's spine as the full weight of the Keeper's words settled over her. Was there no hope left? Were they doomed to become the very thing they were trying to stop? Before she could respond, the rift pulsed again, this time with a violent force. The station shook, its core rupturing as the very essence of reality twisted and buckled beneath the strain of the Nexus's power. Thanos stepped forward, his hands raised, his eyes burning with an intensity She-Hulk had never seen before. "Then I'll be a destroyer, but I'll destroy you if it means saving this universe." The Keeper's form shimmered, and in an instant, it was before him, its presence so overwhelming that She-Hulk had to step back, the energy crackling in the air. It seemed to hesitate, as though assessing him, measuring the depth of his resolve. Then, with a final surge of light, it spoke. Thanos' eyes locked with the Nexus Keeper's, his jaw tightening. "Then I'll bear the cost." The Keeper's form flickered one last time, as if in recognition. "So it will be." With that, the Nexus heart surged, the station collapsing inward, and the battle for the multiverse began anew. She-Hulk bite would have killed any human, but not the Thanos. The Nexus heart roared like a beast awakening, its immense energy pulsing through the station with devastating force. Reality itself began to splinter and warp, the edges of time curling in on themselves as the world around them fractured. She-Hulk stood at the heart of it all, her fists crackling with gamma energy, but even she could feel the weight of the moment. The Keeper's words echoed in her mind. "The cost will be more than you can bear." She looked to Thanos, his figure now a dark silhouette against the flickering light of the collapsing station. His jaw was clenched, his eyes burning with a fierce resolve. This was the moment when everything hinged on the choices they made, when the future of the multiverse rested in their hands. "Thanos." She-Hulk's voice was a sharp command, cutting through the chaos. "What are you waiting for? We have to destroy it. Now." But Thanos' gaze never wavered from the Nexus heart, his expression unreadable. "It's not that simple," he muttered. "If I destroy it, we don't just reset the timelines. We erase everything, every moment, every decision, every life that's ever been lived. The entire multiverse will collapse, and even if I rebuild it, I won't be able to undo the damage I've done." The cost. His voice trailed off, the weight of his own words sinking in. She-Hulk stepped forward, determination hardening her features. She couldn't afford to let doubt fester. "If we don't stop it now, there will be nothing left to save. We can't afford to think about the cost. We have to act." Her words were sharp, but they didn't seem to reach him. Thanos' gaze was still locked on the Nexus heart, the pulsing orb of destruction now threatening to tear apart everything in its wake. The station was beginning to crumble faster, the walls warping and shaking as the fabric of reality grew thinner. "I'm not asking for permission," She-Hulk growled, her fists tightening. "We can argue about this later. But right now, we have a job to do." She leaped forward, her body glowing with the green fury of gamma energy. But Thanos was faster. His hand shot out, catching her wrist midair. She-Hulk paused, staring at him in shock. "Don't make me do this." Thanos' voice was dark, almost a whisper as he held her in place. His grip was tight, unyielding. "I won't let you destroy the Nexus heart, not without understanding the consequences." She struggled, trying to break free of his grasp, but his hold was ironclad. His eyes met hers, and in that moment, something deep inside her shifted. It wasn't fear. It was a shared understanding. He was torn, just like her. "We don't have time for this," she said, her voice trembling with both anger and desperation. "You don't understand, Thanos. This is the only chance we have. If you don't act, everything you fought for will mean nothing." His eyes flickered for a brief moment. It was as though the weight of her words had pierced through the walls he'd built around himself. The Thanos she knew, the ruthless conqueror, the calculating destroyer, was still in there, but there was something else now. Vulnerability. Doubt. In the silence that followed, the air seemed to hold its breath. The Nexus heart pulsed again, louder this time, its energy seeping into every crack, every corner of the station. The walls groaned in protest as the very foundations of reality shook. "Do it, Thanos," She-Hulk screamed, her voice raw with urgency. And then, with a grim nod, Thanos released her wrist. She didn't wait for him to change his mind. She surged forward, her body exploding with power, her fists a blur of destructive force. She felt the surge of energy, the immense weight of the multiverse crashing down on them as she collided with the Nexus heart. The explosion of energy sent shockwaves through the station, tearing the very air apart as She-Hulk punched the heart with all the fury and power she could muster. The blast echoed, deafening and all-encompassing, as time itself seemed to break and twist. The station shook violently, the reality bending and breaking in the aftermath. For a moment, everything stopped. She-Hulk stood there, panting, her body glowing with the aftershock of her blow. Her mind was numb from the sheer force of the impact, but she couldn't afford to let go. Not yet. The Nexus heart was still alive, still pulsing, but it was weakening. Slowly, agonizingly, the cracks began to appear. Reality was still unraveling, but now there was hope. Thanos stood beside her, his eyes fixed on the heart. The cost had been exacted. The multiverse had been shifted, twisted, but in that moment, it was still alive. "It's not over," She-Hulk said, her voice strained but steady. "We've only bought ourselves time. Time to rebuild." She-Hulk bite would have killed any human, but not the Thanos. The once dominant hum of the station had gone silent, replaced by a low, almost mournful groan of the collapsing structure. The Nexus heart, now shattered, had stopped pulsing with the catastrophic force it once wielded. Time seemed to hold its breath in the aftermath, a stillness hanging in the air like a heavy fog. She-Hulk and Thanos stood amidst the ruins, their bodies battered but standing tall, eyes locked on the remnants of the universe they had just saved, and destroyed in the process. The sky outside had shifted. A new light broke through the crack in the fabric of reality, its rays warm and golden, spreading out across the endless void. It was the first sign of rebirth, the first hint that something new was emerging from the chaos. She-Hulk's green skin was streaked with bruises, and her breaths were shallow, but there was a spark in her eyes, something that hadn't been there before. The battle had taken everything from her, but it had also given her clarity. She didn't regret the choices she had made. Not one. Not anymore. Thanos, standing at her side, seemed smaller now. The weight of his past, of the destruction he had caused, was still there, but something had changed within him. He had sacrificed everything, even his own moral code, to stop the unraveling of existence. And while he wasn't the man he had once been, he wasn't the villain he used to be either. "Is it done?" She-Hulk asked, her voice rough but full of determination. She could still feel the pulse of the Nexus heart, a faint hum beneath the surface of the station. But it was quieter now. Its power was waning. Thanos, his gaze fixed on the horizon, nodded. "For now. But time will never be the same again. The timelines have reset. The multiverse is no longer what it was. It's something new, something we can't fully understand yet. She-Hulk's fists relaxed at her sides, the rage she had once felt simmering down into a more tempered resolve. "We made it," she said softly, almost to herself. "We've bought time. For now, that's enough." She turned to face him. Thanos' eyes met hers, and for the first time, she saw a flicker of something in them. A quiet understanding, perhaps even a hint of respect. The two had been enemies once, forces of destruction that had clashed time and again. Now, they stood as survivors, together. "What happens now?" She-Hulk asked, her voice low. Thanos was silent for a long moment. He had always been a man of action, of relentless pursuit. But now, as the weight of their success and failure settled in, he seemed more reflective than ever. "Now, we rebuild. The multiverse is fractured, but it's not destroyed. There's hope yet, and in that hope," he hesitated before continuing, "we have a chance to make things right. A chance to build something better. Even if that means starting from nothing." A small, knowing smile tugged at the corner of She-Hulk's lips. "I thought you were beyond hope," she teased, her tone light, almost playful, something that felt foreign in the face of all they had endured. Thanos allowed a ghost of a smile to appear, the first genuine smile he had worn in what felt like eons. "It would seem that you've changed me." There was something different about them now, something that neither of them could quite place. A bond had formed, not just from their shared battles, but from the recognition of their own flaws, their own humanity. They had fought for the multiverse, but in the end, it wasn't just about survival. It was about redemption. And maybe, just maybe, the possibility of something better. She-Hulk's heart ached, not with pain, but with something else. Something she had long since buried beneath the weight of battle and sacrifice. Hope. It wasn't something she had believed in before, not after everything she had been through. But now, standing here, with Thanos at her side, she realized that there was something to fight for beyond vengeance, beyond rage. The light from the new reality outside cast long shadows across the wreckage of the station. The battle was over, but the war was far from won. The multiverse was a new frontier, an unknown world, fragile and vast, waiting to be shaped by those who dared to believe. "Then we rebuild," She-Hulk said, her voice firm, filled with a newfound conviction. "Together." Thanos turned to her, his eyes gleaming with a fire she hadn't seen before. "Together," he repeated, as if the word itself had weight, as if the universe had changed in that simple affirmation. And so, in the ashes of their shared past, the two unlikely allies stood, ready to face the future. The end had come, but it was not the end of everything. No, it was the beginning.